everybody, welcome back to Conscious Conversation with me, Chrissy J. Today's topic will be the deeper truth about our hearts and what we can do with this truth. Drumbelow Melchizedek said, as long as the mind and ego control the direction of creating, there will always be problems in the outer world, for the ego thinks only of itself and lives in duality. But when the heart is in control, everything comes back to balance, for the heart feels and knows the oneness of life. So how and why should we shift into this way of living? Well, let's find out. So I used to think that the same thing that most people do, that our third eye is the seat of the soul, and that it was the bridge connecting us to our souls and our consciousness. I thought the pineal gland, or in other words the brain, was the physical thing that connected us to those things. I used to think that was the best way to get in touch with those things. I also believed that thoughts came from our brain, and I now know that none of this is true, and about the brain at least. This is all actually true about our hearts. The problem here is that we're living in our mind space instead of our heart space. We think with our brains and we act through them most of the time. Our brains are a great tool to be used, but it's not where we're supposed to live primarily. The truth is, our consciousness and our thoughts and our memories and emotions and all of that is contained not in our brains actually, but in the field of energy that is around us. So the first thing that responds to our thoughts, emotions, memories, all of that, is our heart, which then transmits it to our brain, not the other way around. So the brain is basically just a tool for our hearts to translate things that are non-physical into our physical world for us to understand them in this physical body, basically. We can think with our heart because it has its own nervous system and brain cells and neurotransmitters and all of that stuff. And really, we were taught in school that our brain is controlling everything else in our body, which is mostly true, but what they don't tell you is that your brain is actually taking more orders from your heart than the other way around. But we still think and make decisions more often with our logical mind than our wise heart. Living out of our brain gives us clouded guidance because our mind is full of every experience and every thing that has ever happened to us that gives us kind of biased, even if we don't want to be, and judgment towards situations and things happening, whereas our heart guides us through our intuition, which is just the perspective of our very highest and purest form of ourselves. So it's not clouded clouded guidance like our mind is. Our current reality is full of duality, including our brain that is left and right-sided. Oh, I actually did the right hands. And our heart is just one. There's no left and right side. I mean, there's different lobes or whatever, but it's one. And to move into this oneness way of living and move out of the duality way of living, we have to move into our heart and out of our minds. So, how can we do this? So let's talk about some crazy heart facts you probably didn't know to help you see how true this really is. Our heart has the biggest electromagnetic field of anything in our bodies, the biggest one around us. It's also filled with its own neurotransmitters. It's 100 times electrically stronger than our brains and up to 5,000 times magnetically stronger than our brains. The heart chakra is in the middle of all seven, so it's actually the bridge between the lower three physical ones and the higher three spiritual ones. Conceived, our heart cells start beating as early as 4 weeks, and the heart's actually the first thing that's formed out of all the things in our body, and then the rest of our body kind of comes out of our heart and is formed. If our heart is separated from our body, it actually is so electrically strong that it will keep on beating, and obviously our heart or our body won't keep working without our heart, so that's pretty amazing in itself. Our heart beats irregularly and unharmoniously whenever we're having like negative or bad feelings, And whenever we're having good or positive feelings, it actually beats pretty regularly and harmoniously. And also our heart is connected to all 75 trillion cells in our body, with the exception of our cornea cells, by pumping blood to all of them, which seems pretty realistic whenever you realize that our heart is pumping about 1.5 gallons of blood per minute. So while I was researching for this video, I came across this really great process that's 3 simple steps to quickly move us out of our mind space and into our heart space. So I'm going to give you a brief presentation of that or whatever right now, but like I said, brief, because I don't want this video to get too long, and the actual process will take a little more time than I have to give. So anyways, you should first find a space you can be that's going to be quiet and that you can be undisturbed in for just a short period of time. This doesn't take too terribly long. And once you get to that place, then you should get comfortable in whatever way you feel needed, and then you should close your eyes and take 4 to 7 deep breaths. And while you're doing this, you should have one of your hands on your lower stomach, so that when you're breathing in, you can make sure your stomach is expanding all the way out as far as it can, and when you're breathing out, that it's sinking all the way back in as far as possible. And while you're doing this, you should be focusing on your breathing. And if you have problems with this, a really good way to stay focused on your breathing that one of my friends taught me, so shout out to her, and you know who you are, so thank you for this because it's helpful, is to count your breaths. Count 1 in and 2 when you breathe out. So actually it would be more like 8 to 14 breaths, not 4 to 7, sorry. So anyways, once you've done this, then, and you're all centered and calm, then you're going to want to put one hand on top of your head and one hand on your heart with your eyes closed. Your eyes will be closed, okay? And you're going to want to focus on your hand up here and the sensations. What does your hair feel like? What does the heat feel like? Whatever sensations you feel in that hand, and just kind of focus on that hand for a minute, and then slowly shift your focus to the hand that is over your heart, and think about the sensations there the same way. And then we're going to start slowly tapping each hand for about 10 seconds, and then you'll want to, which I haven't done obviously, but we don't have time, remember, and then you'll want to move the hands to your heart and keep tapping, and then you'll want to slowly and gradually slow it down to a stop, and then you're going to want to just visualize your heart center and visualize a bright green light just emanating from underneath your hands right out of your heart center, and just think about how it's pure and it's whole and it's good, and just see bright green light from there. And once you feel ready, then you're going to want to go ahead and open your eyes. And common side effects from this is that everything around you is going to appear brighter, and you're going to have sudden clarity on anything that you might have been confused about, and you're just going to have calmer breathing overall. And this can work for when you're feeling stressed about little things or big things or anything like that. So feel free to use this in whatever situations you need to use it for. So we've talked about a short-term way to move from our mind to our hearts, but what about the long-term ways to do this day to day and to keep it flowing through our life? Well, let's talk about some ways we can do that. One way is through meditation. Whenever our mind is full of thoughts and we can't even slow down, we are thinking and living in our minds, not in our hearts. So we need to take time to slow down and quiet our minds so that we can even hear our hearts and what they want in the first place. Another way is to start following our heart more often than our mind. Most people listen to their logical mind more often than their rambunctious heart, and therefore we're not doing what our heart wants us to, and we're not being successful. It is scary for us to follow our hearts because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't understand how these intuitions we get will work out. but we have to trust our hearts and follow what they want us to do. Another way is to act out of love and compassion as often as you can, to yourself and to others, through your actions and everything that you do, because these are feelings that come straight from the heart, so you will be living there. But negative emotions and things like being selfish and things like that all come from our mind that only cares about self, while our heart cares about the greater good of everybody. So we need to try and be living out our lives through these positive, pure emotions to be able to live in our hearts in the first place. Another way is to be honest with ourselves and others as much as we can, because our heart knows the truth, no matter how much we try to lie to ourselves or to others. And so the more that you lie, the less it's going to help you, because it knows you're lying. So we've got to be as honest as we can with ourselves and with others, as much as we can, to be able to really be connected and in sync with our hearts to live through them in the first place. Our hearts are really only concerned with the current moment, so it's important to live in the here and now. The past and the future really only exist in our minds. They don't exist right now. Only right now exists right now. So when we're living in the future by being worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, or living in the past by regretting old things that happened, we're living in our minds and not in our hearts. So a really important thing to do to stay living in your heart is to just always focus on being in the here and the now. Another way is not to avoid our less desirable feelings. Living in your heart is not about always having positive emotions and rainbows and lollipops and happiness all the time. There is going to be negative too. There's two sides. You've got to embrace the negative feelings that might come to you, understand them, work through them, analyze them, whatever, and then let them go. The key here is not holding on to them and not ignoring them. You've got to come and meet in the middle and find balance to be able to really live in your heart correctly and efficiently. So I hope this video helped you guys all learn how important living in the heart is and how to shift to this way of living. I've just learned about this, so trust me, I'm far from having this down right now. So let's do it together, guys. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat. All the links will be below in the description and at the screen on the end of this video. Make sure you let me know what you liked or didn't like, or what you thought about it, or what topics you might want me to cover in the future, or anything like that. And if you know anybody you think would like this content, make sure to share this with them. Also, I just want to say thank you to all of you. I really appreciate each and every one of you and all your views and feedback and all of that and all of the shares. And I also want to give a big shout out, as always, to my lifelong friend Casey for taking his time to edit these videos and help me manage all of this stuff so that we can put out this content for you guys. His Facebook will also be linked below and at the end of the video on that screen. So also, I just want to remind you guys, don't forget to leave me some ideas for that art project that I mentioned a few videos back. And other than that, that's about it. So until next time, stay beautiful, guys.